Welcome this evening. Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, has been provided by a notice published in the Home News Tribune on December 28, 2019, and posted in the main lobby of the Municipal Complex on January 5th, 2020. Can you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse, Mr. Pippola?
Here.
Also, I want to put on the record that I also noticed in 2 papers for a special meeting.
Okay.
And the applicant sent all his notices also.
Okay. Present here.
Mr. Jerry's not present. Mr. Pippola?
Here.
Mr. Corrett?
Here.
Councilmember Coyle?
Here.
Mr. Soltez is not present. Mr. Peasy?
Here.
Mr. Singh is not present. Mr. Danielle?
Here.
Mr. Reeder?
Here.
Attorney Rubin? Mr. Carley? Mr. Bignell is not present.
Lillian.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Sandelsky, right there. Okay.
Here.
Durr.
Thank you, Lillian. Resolutions this evening, we have none. Old business, we have none. New business, P25, 2019, Cedar Lane, 11C, South Court. Will the applicant
evening.
come forward?
For the record, Mark Policastro, attorney for the applicant. Thank you for this special meeting, much appreciated. We have all of our witnesses here this evening, which will be 4. I'd like to introduce Mr. Lamb as our first witness. We have provided legal notice, as you've noted. Please state your name for the record.
First name is Tungto, Tungto. Last name is Lam, Lam.
And your credentials, please.
I'm a 2004 graduate from Rochester Institute of Technology with a civil engineering technology degree. And I am a PhD candidate at Rutgers for civil and environmental engineering.
You're licensed in the state of New Jersey.
Yes.
We will accept your credentials as an expert in your field.
Business address is 35 Technology Drive, works for Bowl Engineering. I'm associate there since 2004.
Thank you.
And what's your role in this project, please?
I've been involved with this project since the inception of the concept till now. I've been on every step of the way. I'm the licensed professional on the site plans.
Great, please proceed.
Oh, yeah, excuse me, we got to swear you in, sir. My bad. You solemnly swear affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Do you reaffirm everything you stated prior to being sworn in?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you reaffirm everything you stated prior to being sworn in?
Gotcha.
Thank you. You don't need
2004.
to reiterate
just
it,
say
just
that you
just reaffirm that it's
Got it.
true.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I have in front of you is the aerial exhibit.
You need to have the microphone with you. There's a portable mic over there that you can take.
What I have in front of you on the easel is the aerial exhibit. I'd like to mark that as A1.
Yes.
With today's date. It is prepared by Boulder Engineering, November 26, 2019. North is to the top of the page. Cedar Lane wraps around the top of the page. The Middlesex Water Company plant is on the bottom page. Seacourt South is on the west side, and Highland Park is on the east side. As you can see, the site is very undisturbed with the exception of what's being used as a compost from Rutgers. Other than that, there's really no activity there today. And to our west is a industrial development, which is consistent with our application. And beyond is the Rutgers campus to the north of the page and residential to the east. Aside from that, that is what is in front of you. It's located in the LI zone, block 3E.
Mr. Lamb, is there
11.
anything associated with the soils there, the past use or anything? Is it clean, or is there some issues with the soil? Any at all?
No real concerns. There will be continued testing. We have phase one. We have an LSRP on board.
You gotta keep the microphone a lot closer.
We have a LSRP on board. We have a phase one. There's no real concerns that we're aware of.
They're looking at it currently, though, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Aside from that, it's a 45-acre parcel that's in unique shape, and you'll see that in the next exhibit on how we laid out the site. The next exhibit is the overall site plan. It's the same as sheet C10 on your package. We did colorize this with an aerial photo background, landscaping having superimposed. The dark green is the existing trees that we're preserving, and then there's a pocket of reforestation that we are doing in order to maximize the compliance of the tree removal and tree replacement that's being required.
A2, please.
This is A2, it's last revised December 6, 2019. Once again, north is still to the top of the page. Orientation is the same as A2. Cedar Lane to the top. The Middlesex Water Company to the bottom of the page. Seaport South is on the west side. And then Highland Park is still on the east. We're proposing a warehouse that is 699,600 square feet. There are 45.8 foot for the building height, and that's the average for the calculation, 45 being permitted. 123 docks being proposed on the north and south side of the site. There are 4 drive-up ramps that is typical with the operation of this facility. The site contains the warehouse 647,667 square foot of warehouse space, 51,993 office space being carved up in 3 different components just to give user flexibilities, and within those locations there are 3 parking lots distinctly for them, for a total of 389 parking stalls for the entire site. There are 2 driveways being proposed at the opposite end, creating the maximum separation. We have met with Middlesex County, and we have verbally received approval. They voted on it, but they have no staff to type the letter, and we've been chasing them for about a month now. And just for perspective, on the Costco application that was approved back in April, we just received a letter this week. So they are a little behind on typing. We are in full compliance with the bulk requirement, with the exception of the building height is just an 8-inch deviation and just the average, how we calculate the base level. But if you measure from the finished floor, we're in full compliance. Aside from that, we are in review of the Hank Bennell review letter from November, and also Mr. Charlie Carley's review letter from December. And we are in full compliance with those review letters. And we have the opportunity to meet with Hank in the December, right after our TRC. We went through every page of the plan, which is all 77 sheets of it, and we went through comment by comments on how we were addressing it, and all the changes has been reflected, including a fence being proposed between this lot and the property in Highland Park, lush landscaping being added. In terms of outside agency approval, the SCD approval is pending. We have 2 minor comments with them. The county, like I said, we have verbal approval. We're just waiting for them to type up their approval letter. The sewer permit is pending. It's roughly about 30 days away. The wetland, similarly, we're expecting it any day now. We have an email from them that they have no further comments. And then the flood approval, that is shortly, within 90 days. So there are a slew of easements on site, water, sewer, everything else we think of. Sewer main is being relocated, has been worked out with Bob Smith from the township, has been gone through review from Middlesex Utility Authority, and is most recently down at Trenton for review.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
a couple things. Do you have plans to Mr. Smith as to how you're going to reroute the sewer line that's going through the site?
Yes, it has been submitted. He has reviewed it. He has signed off on the TWA application in
How about the
conjunction
county?
with
And
Mazer.
the county's good with it, too?
What was that?
The county is good with that, too?
Yes, county has signed off on it also.
How about item D of Mr. Bignell's report? The development footprint should be decreased in size so as not to eliminate all encroachments into wetlands, wetland buffers, or riparian buffers. This can be accomplished without any hardship with
Yeah.
new construction. What did you do to do that?
We had a discussion on it. I think there was some probably misunderstanding. There are no encroachment in the riparian buffer at all. We're not disturbing the wetlands. And even the buffer on the wetland is just being average. So we're taking away some in one area, we're adding it back in others. But we're not disturbing any wetlands at all, or the streams or the riparian. So I think the intent is met. It was just maybe a misunderstanding on the initial submission. It was just such a large set, 77 sheets, so.
But you do have your LOI from the...
LOI, we have it in email form, the actual document. Once again, they're waiting for someone to type it.
Okay. And because there's a lot of trees on this site, you're going to comply with our tree ordinance and whatever Mr. Bignell has asked in this report?
Yeah, it will be addressed as part of resolution compliance. We have tried to add as many trees as we can, even in the pocket near the wetlands, to the west side of the page, down where Seacourt Street is. We have used the larger caliber trees on site, just to maximize the screening, to minimize the tree replacement, but yes, we are still short, and we'll.
We'd like to have a discussion in resolution compliance about that. It's an extremely high number, so we'll comply, but we'd like to have a discussion post-resolution if this were to be approved.
I don't understand that, if I may. I
Well, we
mean,
could-
if,
sorry.
in other words, if the resolution says you're going to comply with the tree ordinance, you're not going to be able to come to some compromise on the tree ordinance requirements without coming back to the board.
We could plant and/or pay, correct?
Correct.
Council?
Correct.
That's all we're saying. We'd like to have that discussion about how best to accomplish that.
In other words, what the ratio will be between paying and
Yes.
planting? Okay.
And yes, exactly. We're going to comply with you, for sure, with the ordinance.
Yeah, I think he says you're short 1,639 trees, something like that.
It's a big number.
Yes.
No.
But I had a question, you're not contesting the number of trees?
No. We're not.
It's just how you pay or, not pay or
Plant more.
Pay or
How we
plant.
get there in
One way or another.
combination of payment
Right.
and planting. We can plant some off-site, for example, as you all aware, pursuant to your ordinance. So that's a discussion we want to have, but we will
Do we?
comply.
Do we designate where the plant offsite?
Well, they have to, if it's going to be off-site, we have to approve the condition where it's going or under what conditions and.
Understood, understood.
Because also, under item D, there's also some tree questions there. And Mr. Bignell's comment was there's more information required. And also
Yes.
on the screening, there's more information required. Has that discussion taken place?
We
Has
have.
it been?
Directly after the TRC meeting, we met with Hank and we went through each page, and then we had a response letter that accompanied it, and it says how we're addressing it and what we did to address it, and that was submitted to the board.
Do you have a copy of that letter? Because I haven't seen that.
Chairman, weren't you at that TRC meeting?
I was at a TRC
Did you
meeting. I
hear
saw
any
it
of
all
that?
letter afterwards and
Yeah.
all that.
December 6th, we had that submission was what gave the application to be deemed complete, because during the TRC, it was deemed incomplete.
So, just check. Is every one of these a response to Mr. Bignell's?
Yes,
There's an answer on every one of them.
there's an answer on every single one, and we went through those comment by comment, which is why he deemed the application complete, because we satisfied his concerns and comments, such as adding a fence, we did that, more landscaping, we did that, readjustment of the parking lot layout, we did that, so showing where the trash enclosure would be, which is going to be potentially a compactor, transformers, generator, basically everything he asked in that letter, we met with him and went through point by point, and
Are we marking that as an exhibit?
I think we should. We're referring to it, and it should be marked as.
yeah, I mean, it was submitted to the township on
Should be
December
distributed to everyone
6th.
if we can get copies to everyone.
I think we should get Lillian a copy of
Put it in the record.
And what do we want to,
This is an exhibit, their exhibit, so this is A3.
A3? Is in the packet.
That was the answer to Mr. Bignell's comments.
Right.
I mean, hold on, wait, hold on, don't go unless you...
Mr. Chair, just so we understand, you have a potential for 3 tenants in this building, correct? You have a potential for 3 tenants in this building, right?
We have 3 offices, but we're thinking it's just going to be 1 tenant, is
Okay, so
ideally.
let's assume you have 2 tenants. Will both tenants be using the same dumpster, or will they have a separate dumpster area?
We show 4, so we have 4.
You have 4 of them?
Yeah,
If you need them?
if we need them.
If you need them,
correct.
okay.
Yep.
Because I didn't see that plan, did you?
It's, if you are referring to A2, it's basically at the 4 corners of the building.
Oh, on A2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's penciled in, and...
I'm looking
it's
at the
just-
site plan.
It's just a guess, yeah.
It's just a
I'm sure
guess.
it's
We
just
don't have a
guess,
tenant,
yeah.
we don't
They
know what their
have
demand
tenants,
is, that's why. We just want to leave some flexibility, we just want to let the board know there will be potential of these items on the site. The exact location, we're guessing where they are at this time. But the intent is to provide screening, landscaping, buffering, and all that has been achieved.
May I just ask a question if I could?
Sure.
So, have you added trees since Mr. Bignell wrote his report?
Yes.
Okay, so his representation that there's a deficit of 1,639 trees has been reduced by whatever changes you've made to the plan since this report was written, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you quantify what that number is for us?
I can, but
And I have a question, is that in the, it's on landscaping sheet C42 to 49, is that where that is? Look at,
if you refer to C 42, which is the landscaping plan, the calculation is basically on the bottom of the page, left-hand corner. Tree deficiency right now, as it currently stands, 1639. After a review with Hank, we added trees, we added shrubs, we also changed the size of it, some species, and things of that nature, and the placement. But the plans as they stand today, the deficit is 1639.
and that's on C42, you say?
C42, bottom of the page, there's a chart with all the math in there.
That's the number that's in Mr. Bignell's report.
Yeah.
So you haven't added trees to the plan since Mr. Bignell's report? That's what I asked, and you said you had.
We have, but then there's also subsequent disturbance, so the calculation worked out to be the same number.
Okay. So you added trees and then you
We
took
added
away
trees because some additional disturbance, but the end number is still 1639.
Okay.
So,
All right, can we just go back to that? This is your Bowler's engineer, that, so on number I, page 3 of 7, 11I says landscape plan sheet C42 to 49 have been revised to provide additional screening to the proposed buffer, which include additional trees and shrubs along the frontage and evergreens at the southwest residential border. Okay, so just walk me through that again. So Hank's letter's dated 11/26. This is in response to 11/26.
correct.
And you say you go to the bottom of page C42, left-hand side or right-hand side?
Left-hand side.
This one here, nothing more than the site plan that we have. This is same thing, right?
So, in response to our council's question, the number just so happens not to change at all because
Because there was additional disturbance,
and then you,
we added trees.
Trees.
But the math happens to be 1639.
okay, all right. Actually, counsel, you know what, I think look, we're doing a special meeting, we're doing you a favor, and we're trying to help you out here. Could you just go through the letter?
Sure.
One of you, number 11, if we can go quickly. So, for example, you just answered the question, there's going to be possibly 3 tenants, right?
Yes, there could be 3 tenants, yes.
Right, so you can cross off J. Again, we're just getting, this is a pretty quick meeting, and which one do we go through?
This one. Number 11. So just to, do you want to start with A then?
Yeah, some
Okay,
some
yep.
can just blow right by, others, I have some thoughts.
11A, the documentations for approval, exemptions, or submissions all have been submitted. We have SCD.
That's fine. Right, fine.
11B,
B,
the signature form, the additional paperwork was submitted as part of the December resubmission. So that has been, it has Rutgers' signature, it has been submitted.
okay.
11C, there needs to provide the wetland is forthcoming, we
Okay.
expect it any
Right.
day now. 11D is about the decrease encroachment,
talked-
we just mentioned, there is no encroachment in their actual wetland and things of that nature. 11E is about the tree
So, and the
fund.
DEP is going to sign off on that anyway, right?
Yes.
So-
They
Will
have
be
to.
part of
Right,
their
right.
outside agency approval, conditional, will be resolution. 11E is about the tree funds, we just
Right,
discussed,
so
the plants we pay,
right.
one way or another, we have to comply with that.
Right, so the applicant will provide a contribution, but council wants to know how it's going to be, whether it's going to be plan or pay. That's, right,
Or a combination,
okay,
pursuant to your ordinance.
right, okay.
11F is about the environmental constraint, we have an extra sheet in the plan that highlighted everything, and it's in color, so,
Has Mr. Bignell seen that?
yes, we went through it in person with him, it is sheet
Give us the sheet number.
It's C-79, I think.
C79, correct.
Right, okay.
11G, same thing, the additional truck turning has been submitted as part of the package and was reviewed with Hank. It is sheet C81, sheet C82, so there's 2 separate sheets in there.
All right, I actually have a question, not specifically on that, but counsel, have you seen the December 6th letter from the fire chief, Brian?
Yes, we have, and we
Yeah,
had.
so it
discussion
says,
with him.
"The submitted plans to the Division of Fire show no utilities planned for the size of water mains, hydrants, and their location for protection." And then they talk about the turning radius. Does that mean, how do you read that sentence? Is that supposed to be
It
planned?
was 77 sheets, for some reason, he only got 1 sheet out of 77. We provided him with additional, we just received his comment letter Tuesday, and we
Okay,
were
so-
on the phone with him today.
All right,
and
so
we
what the
sent in
board, so what I have
additional.
is a December 6th letter saying he doesn't have it. Lillian, where's, she's upstairs. So did Brian Latham, Chief Latham, issue a new letter?
No.
Well, that's what he's saying, right?
He, we just had a discussion with him today, Lillian, you were
Oh,
included.
okay,
in
so
the-
we don't have a letter yet.
We don't have a letter, but he
Okay.
was provided with the additional copies, the utility plans that shows the size of the water main,
Right.
location of the fire hydrant. It was provided the fire truck turning movement, which shows how the fire truck can circulate the site in a safe manner. And
Okay.
the only thing we cannot address at this time is the fire department connection. Once we have a MEP on board, it'll be part of the resolution compliance, and then we'll work out, it's just a conditional, construction item, but we'll have to meet to his satisfaction.
All right, so this letter, December 6th, is no good. We need a new letter. We
We're
agree.
expecting a new one.
Understood.
Okay,
Understood.
fine. Keep going, I'm sorry. No.
11F, the physical impact statement has been signed by the preparer, and that was submitted as part of the December resubmission. 11I is the screening, buffering, that was additionally added and is reflected on the landscape sheet.
And again, you spoke to Mr. Bignell, he signed off. When did this occur, do you know?
It was the Friday after the TRC.
Okay,
That's true. They were there for hours.
okay, that's fine.
Lillian got tired of seeing me that day.
Okay,
11J, we have designed the site up to 3 tenants, but we're expecting maybe 1 tenant, but we have the flexibility, just with the layout, with the building design,
Do you know what type of tenant it would be?
not at this time.
Is there any restriction on the type of tenant?
It just has to restrict to warehouse component, stay within the permitted use.
Okay.
So. K, the wayfinding sign, that exhibit has been submitted. It's also, it is sheet C86. And that was also reviewed in person with Hank.
Excuse me 1 second, while we're on signs, not in the list that we're talking about now, but in the forward portion of Hank's, on page 4 of Hank's report, item 7, you indicate on that item 7, sign review, you say A part of it, freestanding, acknowledged, and you say the facade portion, B, acknowledged. But in that section 7, it says there is a violation, the sign separation by 2,500 linear feet, you're providing 2,061.
Correct. That is a billboard requirement, which for a freestanding sign, the requirement is only 1,600. So the 2,000-foot separation that we're proposing exceeds the 16.
So
we're
you're
actually in
saying Mr.
compliance with it.
Bignell was wrong in citing that there was a 2,500 linear feet
We
requirement?
had the same misunderstanding too. We thought it was applicable to us, and upon further review, it was applicable to billboards only. So
So
we
what-
both had the same
The
misunderstanding.
requirement here is 1,600 linear feet,
Correct.
you're saying?
Correct. Okay, continuing.
L is about the parking reconfiguration for the 86 parking space, which is at the L shape of the building. Those parking spaces were reconfigured. It previously had 3 connections to the main row on the site, has been reduced to 2 to reduce some conflict point. And we have reviewed that at the suggestion of Hank, and that's where the layout came from.
Okay.
M is about the truck loading, and that is part of the truck turning exhibit that was submitted, is sheet C81 and sheet C82.
Okay.
M is about the easement on site, and we have added an additional sheet, which is C80, easement exhibit, which highlights every single easement on site, existing and proposed, and what we're doing with them. O is about the 8-foot-high fence that was proposed. We added additional label to make it easier to find, but it's separating between the Edison property and the Highland Park property right along the municipal boundary on the property line
You
on
added
this
it to
property.
what sheet? That note.
It is on C10.
Right. So just on the fence, is that going to be plastic, board on board? What's, do we know what it's going to be?
It is 8-foot wood fence, board fence.
Okay, all right, thank you. So do you want to somehow get that in, on the plans or whatever?
It is on the plans.
It's on
Yes.
the plan. Okay, good.
Yep.
It'll be in the resolution.
Fine, okay.
Same thing with P, the parking tree calc. The additional calculation has been added on sheet C42.
Or C43, no? It says here it's 43.
Yeah, it's on both. Yep.
So so C43 reflects the correct?
We added some additional calculation that was previously not shown on the initial submission
Okay,
and has
good.
been on the plans.
Thank you.
Q, the stream corridor protection, and additional exhibit has been provided, which is C78. And we're in compliance.
All right.
R, the environmental impact statement that was submitted as part of the resubmission in December. That's a separate report, not part of the set. S is about the Seacourt Street that goes nowhere, unnecessary pavement. I was just reminded that it's a municipal property. We have no control over it, so if the township wish to vacate or remove the pavement, it's up to
Where is that on that?
your choice. It is this cul-de-sac
Right,
on the northwest corner of the property.
right. So,
It's municipal road, so we really don't care what you guys do
Okay.
with it. It's
May I ask a
what-
question about that? Your address, your formal address is C South. Given that the whole building's going to be oriented towards Cedar, are you going to try to change the street address of this property to reflect what
Yeah, we'll reach out to
the tax assessor or
tax
whomever?
assessor, USPS, and things of that.
can we kind of ask, not just ask, but can we require that?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of weird having that cul-de-sac as your address,
Yeah, I don't know why, I was just there.
right? It's
Key
like
is about the
that,
location of a compactor, trash enclosure, that's been added at the four corner of the building in the loading area. Use the location as transformer, hot box,
just hold
generator.
one second. On T, did Mr. Bignell tell you that there's certain members don't like white pines, as we want evergreens? So we don't want any white pine trees over there.
We'll make that change as part of the condition.
Yeah, I don't care whether you're Norwegian spruce or some kind of,
Noted.
hardy.
No white pine, understood.
Thank you.
Use about the transformer, hot box, generator, all those outdoor utilities has been added to the plans. And basically, they're on sheet C26 and a couple other sheets.
Can you point out on the plan, on the site plan, where it's going to be?
Four corners for the trash, the generator and transformer at the northwest corner of the property. Hot box is tucked away on Seacourt Street, being buffered by the existing vegetations.
Okay.
V is the pipeline buffer ordinance. Certified mail has been sent out, and we received response that there are no concerns.
Have those letters been provided to Mr. Bignell?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
W, the storage of vehicle not associated with the tenancy, we have no problem complying with that condition. X is about the additional escrow fees and application fee. Those were submitted in person in December.
So they're all paid? They're all
Yes. And then we have a second review letter from Mr. Carley.
Thank you for going through that.
Of course, of course.
We have a December 11 review letter. We are in compliance with everything, and what we haven't done, we will do. And some of the stuff is just getting road opening permits, soil importation. They're all construction-related items, which we're just simply deferring at this time because we're not ready for it yet.
Just once, we don't need to go through that. Mr. Carley, you're okay with the responses on this letter? I don't want to make them go through, because Hank wasn't
You know
here.
what? Let's swear Mr. Carley in. He was not here last month,
Okay.
and we swore in Mr. Bignell. And let's swear in Mr. Carley. We'll swear him in for the year.
All right.
Hopefully you'll make it that long, but we can't promise anything. So,
It's not a commitment.
do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give throughout this calendar year be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Carley. We can hear from you now.
Thank you. I think the engineers can address the remaining comments through resolution compliance and pre-construction. Just one comment having to do with traffic. Just look for the traffic engineer to provide a thumbnail sketch of his conclusions and talk about all traffic.
We will do that.
W's next.
That's all we have, Mr. Chairman, for this witness.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Coyle.
there's a few questions I have for you. Can you just walk me through the utilities in the back? You mentioned some buffer right-of-ways. So can you point to me where the sewer line for the BPU is going to be, the MCU pipe, the sewer pipe in the back that you're going to change, redirect?
Correct. There is existing sewer line that, for the township of Edison, and that ultimately goes to MCUA, that jig-jags throughout the site. We're finding a more efficient route to relocate it along the frontage, and there's an easement being provided, so they have a dedicated easement. If they ever need maintenance, it's right off on the street instead of cutting randomly through the site, so. And then the other easement that we're relocating is for the water treatment plant for Middlesex Water Company. It was previously connecting to a manhole that was on site just because the shape and location alignment of the township line. So that is being rerouted and making a direct connection back to same location, just a little bit longer, a little different route. But we've worked all that out with both Bob Smith, MCUA, and Middlesex Water Company.
Now, you pay for all the improvements on the street? If there's anything interrupting, that's all on your cost?
Everything here is us.
Now, in the back, I was on the site and I walked the site today about 4 o'clock. And there's a drop-off on the rear of the building to the water company.
Yes.
How far are you coming into that drop-off? And there's also a small little drainage pit down there, and there's a few drains coming off of Middlesex Water Company. Did you note that? Did you?
Yes. The drains are being undisturbed. As part of this development, there's a proposed large underground detention basin being proposed on the south side of the site, closest to the stream. So the water's going to go back to the stream as it is, but it will go into our detention basin, hold it, release it in slow rate, water quality treatment device being provided, all in compliance with township, county, DEP standards.
So is there anything being disturbed in that?
Everything you see
Pre-existing?
that's in this dark green wood hatch is being preserved. So there's going to be a physical barrier retaining wall with a guy rail and fence, so it's going to be hard to go beyond
How
that.
far are you extending yourself off that ledge there? How many feet are you trying to create?
It
with your
varies in
retaining wall?
different
It's gotta be
spots,
pretty-
and
Pretty big size retaining wall you're going to put up, no?
it is, yeah, a decent retaining wall.
How many feet are you trying to exceed over the pre-existing ledge that's there?
It varies from spot to spot, but it's
What's the average?
roughly 50 feet is the least, and then it goes beyond from there. So,
I had a quick question. So for the MCUA and for the township, they're going to be all new pipes?
all new pipes,
So-
which
so-
help with the I&I problem that the township is having.
Right, that's, right, so we're going to get new, for the MCUA, new
manhole,
sewer,
new pipes.
and it's for water also for the township, right?
The water, there's no physical, but there is a loop that's being proposed as part of this development for on-site. Right now, the water ends on Seacourt Street, so
But the MCUA is one, you're replacing, but you said, I thought the water company had some sewer.
the water company has a force main that comes onto our site where they discharge the sewer. We're rerouting that with a brand-new line.
Okay.
Township has lines throughout the site. We're relocating, so it's a long cedar lane. So, brand-new pipe, brand-new manhole, everything's brand new.
While we're on that subject of replacement, are you going to replace just what you're disturbing, or you're going to go beyond what's needed?
Sewer is being
Kinda
replaced from frontage to frontage, the entire length. There's really nothing more we could do on sewers. We're doing everything we can. Water is being extended throughout the site, and then same thing on the Middlesex Water Company. That force main is being replaced from where the disturbance is and onward, not under the stream or to the plants. And we'll work that out with them, and that's what they want us to do.
And where you decide to cut and replace, is that from our authority, or is that from your authority? Are we making that decision with the MCUA in the township?
You guys reviewed it, and
Okay, so
it
what we
was
decide
your-
to have you replace, if it's beyond your perimeter, you're going to comply with the township?
Your township has reviewed the plans and gave us their endorsement for the sewer, so.
And going back to the trees, I walked the site, and I know where the Seacourt is. I understand the address issue, not making sense. Can you walk me through, are you replanting in that area, or just leaving it as it is?
As much of it we can remain is staying, but there are pockets that is just open space. We're infilling that as much as we can.
Because you made a pathway through some parts of it, I guess, during your evaluations. I just wondered if you can fill in that area that's there now. It didn't look to be,
There is a,
mean,
it's a
it's-
wetland, it's a ditch, that's part of the reason why we're not disturbing it, so.
And walk me through your traffic pattern of the trucks.
The two full movement driveway on opposite end of the site, and it's safe and efficient. It could come in any which way, it could turn, so it has multiple options.
Show me both your entrances, please. Would you say, can you point to them?
Referring to sheet C82 of the set,
Page 4, please.
A4, got it. Full movement driveway on both sides. Trucks can come in either left hand or right hand, and then it could traverse the site in either option. And it could get in every loading space being proposed.
So there's one main entrance.
Two main entrances.
Okay, two.
Yes,
Okay.
on opposite side of the site.
Now,
Good, thank you.
On vehicles be coming from up Cedar Lane and from River Road area?
On both sides.
Okay, are you aware that there are no trucks?
After
allowed,
5 o'clock, before 8
Between
a.m. or
5
something.
PM and 8 AM?
Yeah. And that's just on the Highland Park side, but
Right.
there's multiple directions that it could come from. And our next witness, the traffic engineer, would be able to explain their traffic patterns and the roadway conditions, classification, and things like that.
Chairman?
Yes,
A
Mr.
few-
Coyle.
A few more questions. How many parking spaces do you have?
For vehicles, we're 389.
And how many parking spaces for trailers?
161? Yes,
And how many loading docks?
123.
Okay, now, part of a problem I have is other warehouses will double stack their trailers. When you talk about your parking spaces, are you including your doors? Is it a total of 123 trailer parking spaces, or is it the 123 plus the 161?
123 plus 161. 161 is just trailer only,
Okay.
and 163 is what you would consider loading
But
docks.
161 is the loading docks?
No, 123 is the docks.
Docks.
161 is the trailer space.
Trailers. So that's it, and are you planning to double stack those spots, or are you?
There's one
coming into
area to the south of the site we are, but to the north of the site we're not.
So the 161 will be the 161 could be 300 or so.
No,
Stack.
161 is
It's a solid 161.
161.
And part
That's
of your
it.
testimony today is that's your 161.
That's 161 in 3 areas that's shown in the plan before you. In the north, single, and then in the south is the double.
Do you understand my question with double stacking them?
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure that it's in the resolution that that's your parking.
Yes.
I mean, warehouses have been becoming pretty popular in Edison, and I think what you're permitted for should be what you deliver. And the problem I'm seeing is other warehouses are double stacking, so they come in for the approval for the 123, plus their 123 on the docks and the 161 on the trailers, but they double stack the trailers, so we wind up having double.
No, we counted that already.
Acknowledged.
And that,
It's a fair statement, and we acknowledge that.
and to our attorney, that'll be a part of the resolution?
The resolution will say this is how many spaces they have.
Thank you, Counsel.
Mr. Lamb, also, I've forgotten if we covered it, but we do require, we need an agreement here that only vehicles associated with the business that's going to be included there will be parked on that facility. No other cars or trucks or anything of,
Understood.
Yep, it was consistent with Hank's request.
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Hank has one of his items addressed.
Right.
thank you.
Storage.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Peasy.
I'd like to talk about, in Mr. Bignell's report, 4B, the bulk, the maximum building height.
Yes.
There's 45 feet required, you're requesting 45.8.
0.8, yeah.
Can
It's a
you
silly
give-
request, but it's just the way the math works. If you measure from finished floor, which is the flat part of the building, where people are walking to the top of the building, we comply. But because of the position and the grading associated with the loading docks being 4 feet lower, Then the floor itself, they're averaging at the 6 corners of the building, because we have an L-shaped building. It drove that math up by 0.8. But if, you can't really see it, to be quite honest, so,
Okay, no, but you are requesting variance for that?
yes.
We are.
Okay. And the 3-story versus 1-story?
It's only 1 story.
1-story,
Yes, it's a warehouse.
okay.
Anything else, Mr. Lamb?
I'm all out of presentations.
Any from my fellow board members, any other comments or questions?
Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
just
Corral.
when you look down into that swell below your rear, there's a pipe. I photographed the pipe, a large 20-inch pipe. Have you identified what that is? Right around there, it sits in
Right
the
the
middle,
middle?
it's facing up, there's no cap on it. I can show it to you in this picture if it helps. I'm not looking to, I'm just looking to make an identification. It's by the stream area there.
I actually do not know where that is. When I was on site, I didn't notice that, so.
Is it safe for us to say you've identified every utility in that back and have went through every channel possible?
Yeah, we obtained maps, records, we talked to,
Did you walk the site?
I did.
When did you walk the site?
It's about last Friday, it's most recent, so.
Did you walk in the rear property behind it where I'm discussing
Particularly
it
walked
with
in
the
the rear of
officer?
the property because I was trying to look at some of the stream conditions.
Thank you.
Mr. Martell?
Solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Jeffrey Martell, Martell, M-A-R-T-E-L-L, Stonefield Engineering and Design, 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford.
And your credentials, please?
Sure. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, bachelor's degree in engineering from University of Delaware, master's degree from NJIT, practicing for 10-plus years. I've testified before 100-plus land use boards as an expert in traffic engineering, testified before this board on 2 applications as well.
Thanks.
We will accept his credentials as an expert in his field. Thank you.
And your role in this project, and your firm's role in this project, please?
As the traffic consultant, we prepared a traffic impact statement and also consulted and assisted Bowler Engineering with the traffic aspects of the site plan.
Please proceed.
Great. So as part of the application, we submitted a traffic impact study. It was dated September 12th last year. We performed counts on August 13th last year, both 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 7 in the PM on a Tuesday. We analyzed Cedar Lane, obviously along the site frontage, including the intersection of what's called Road 1 on the southern side of the frontage. And then we also analyzed the intersection of Kilmer and Plainfield, about a mile to the north, plus or minus, of the property. Now, what's customary with traffic engineering is we take those traffic counts and we consider them a baseline or existing condition. We then added on 2 years of background growth to establish what we call the no-build condition. We also looked at that intersection of Kilmer and Plainfield, noting the ongoing county project there at the intersection, and also took a look at those plans and the amended signal timing and put that into the model as well. So essentially, that's what we call the no-build condition. We then surcharge that condition in terms of a traffic analysis with the trip generation for the site. We, of course, have the proposed warehouse facility here. I think what's notable in terms of what we did in the report and how we analyzed it is that a facility of this nature would be categorized as what's called ITE Land Use Code number 154. Now, that's a very large facility. It's what they call a high cube transload and short-term warehouse. The larger the building, IT actually assigns a lower trip generation. So we discarded that one. We use general warehousing, which we think is appropriate, and in a traffic world, we'd consider that, quote, conservative, just taking the ITE land use code for a general warehouse. That has a higher trip generation, which is why we use that. So we didn't take necessary.
Excuse me 1 second, Jeff.
Sure.
What order of magnitude of a difference is there by taking a more conservative, i.e. higher volume?
About
activity,
20% in terms of the trip.
20% higher?
Correct.
Than what you're required to do?
Correct, based on the size. So the general warehouse is the catch-all. There's also some other ITE land use codes that would be more associated with self-storage and things of that nature, but there's a few different warehousing ITE land use codes. So we've selected number 150, which is general warehousing. So we assign those trips. In the AM, we assign approximately 109 new trips to the facility. That's considered split between 75 passenger and 34 truck. Similarly, in the PM, we assign 112 trips. That's split up between 87 passenger and 25 truck. So ITE land use code has this total trip generation, and then they have percentages to expect between the passenger cars and the trucks, as I've just outlined. So we took this build condition, which is that no build condition, which was the counts, the baseline, plus the background growth. We added the trip generation, and then we studied the two site driveways, southern driveway creating, of course, the fourth leg of the intersection with Cedar Lane and Road 1 across the street. We looked at that in both the AM and PM, and there are level of service tables within the traffic report, and we're happy to report that considering the no build or comparing the no build versus the build condition, there's no degradation in the level of service of that unsignalized intersection. From a traffic engineer's perspective, that is the result that we would be looking for. Essentially, that result comes due to the fact that we're not generating enough trips to move the needle, so to speak, to degrade the level of service. We also looked at the northern driveway, which is essentially a driveway on Cedar. There's no roadway across the street, so we just labeled it as the northern driveway. It has a level of service of B or better in the AM and PM. Now, finally, what we did is, and somewhat to Mr. Carley's point that he made earlier, is although this is a permitted use in the zone, and although we don't generate more than 100 new trips to any intersection, which is generally the measure in which you would decide whether to perform a study of an intersection or not. So even though we fall below that 100 threshold at any intersection, we looked at the intersection of Plainfield and Kilmer, just noting the, I'll call it the sensitivity to that intersection. There's a county project going. Obviously, it's a high volume intersection from a general standpoint. So we looked at that intersection. We looked at the timing that the county improvement signal project is going to result in. And we, again, were able to conclude that there's no degradation in the level of service from the no build to the build condition. So the number of trips, again, doesn't move the needle at that intersection. Now, we do have conditional county approval based on the verbal that Mr. Lamb got from the county. We haven't seen it in writing. But in conversation with the county, there was a comment, I'll call it. It wasn't necessarily a request or anything formally put forth to us, but the county openly questioned whether they're going to do this project. We put in our warehouse, and their project is antiquated a few years down the road. So we performed what we call a, quote, sensitivity analysis. And what that means is that you apply a higher trip generation than you expect to see where and if your project would have a potential impact. So we tripled the trip generation expected from this ITE land use code 150 of our project, reanalyzed that intersection, and it operates as a level of service D or better, which is essentially an acceptable level of service. So my testimony to you before this board this evening is that the driveways will operate at acceptable levels of service. I think the notable intersection that we looked at to determine any potential off-site, Plainfield and Kilmer operates as it does today. And even with this sensitivity analysis, using the more conservative land use code, we still don't degrade, or I should say we still don't have a level of service that would be cause a failing impact at that off-site intersection. So we've done that. We have gone to, I think, significant lengths to assess that there are no off-site impacts as part of this project.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Pease.
Are you familiar with the county's project going to be, or you just arbitrarily took that 3 times trip generation?
Yeah, there's no necessarily rule of thumb for a sensitivity analysis, so 3 times is what we chose
Which should be more than
as a
whatever's gonna be
factor of
generated
safety.
by the,
Oftentimes, engineers use 2 as a factor of safety. We did 2, it worked. We did 3, it still works, and that's kind of where we ended.
Mr. Chair, the level of service currently on Kilmer and Plainfield is D.
Excuse me?
The level of service on Kilmer and Plainfield before you did your sensitivity.
Correct.
Is it D?
Overall, it's a B in the AM, and it's a C in the PM in terms of the no-build condition with that signal timing. Under existing conditions, it's actually the same. It's a B in the AM and a C in the PM. Now, that's the overall level of service. Our tables identify each individual movement, so it ranges between an A and a D in the individual movements, and then what I testify to is the overall level of service. So it remains a B in the AM, and it remains a C in the PM. And each individual movement also remains the exact level of service as well. So if you go down the chart and you look at no build versus build, and each individual movement, it does not degrade, between that comparison condition.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I didn't follow. I think you earlier had stated that with the additional traffic that you're estimating and the safety factors you're putting into it, it did drop the intersection to a D, but then you said individually you're calling off A, B, C's.
No. So in the build to no build, which is just using the trip generation that is anticipated, there's no degradation, there's no change. When we added the sensitivity analysis, when we tripled, it then brought it down to a level of service E. So it would have to triple to have that impact, and even with that impact, a level of service E is an acceptable level of service for the intersection, so it still doesn't, quote, fail.
Earlier you said D.
I said D. Let me double check my
Are you
notes.
on page 7?
The level of service. Yeah, so the large majority is D or better. Is D or better? Obviously, honestly, sorry. 3 times level of service D. It results in D with the 3 times. With a 4 times level, 4 times multiplier on that trip generation, it goes down to E. So I apologize. So 3 times the trip generation and sensitivity analysis, it goes to a level of service D or better. 4 times the trip generation and the sensitivity analysis, it goes to a level of service E or better. So even 4 times, it still doesn't reach a failure condition. I apologize, I did misstate that.
The insertion of the sensitivity element of that, is that generally practiced, or you
No.
put that in to be concerned?
Bi-
Without the generation, the sensitivity, what is
It
that
remains the
intersection?
same, it remains the same as it is today, which is I don't want to misstate it because I'm just saying a lot of letters here now. It'll remain the same as it is today, which is a B in the AM or a C in the PM.
And only with the sensitivity of 3 times that volume does it enter into a D?
A D,
Down
and then
to a D.
4 times it enters into an E. The sensitivity analysis, I think, is a far above and beyond assessment. It's not required. We only did that to really strengthen the statement that we believe there are no off-site impacts with this project.
Just a side question, Jeff, because we have traffic studies before. You indicate that before the intersection, I don't know if you used the word becomes a failure or something. It's my understanding, and there have been different traffic studies done here, nothing fails. It just goes from D to E to F, and everybody talks about it, but is there an actual level that you say this is a failure and you cannot build because of this rating?
DOT will not let you build a level of service F. So there's not necessarily a universally accepted answer to that, but if I would defer to DOT and I were to create an intersection or have an impact on an intersection or create a driveway that has a level of service F, they would not permit it. So that is what most people would generically call failing.
Thank you.
And I would just say, in terms of the on-site movements, I think there was a good point made about the timing restriction. We have spoken to the team and think it's appropriate to put signs at the site driveway as well when you're leaving, so you're aware of that timing restriction. If you were to make a left out of either of the two driveways, there's no sense in sending people around Road 1. They should be aware of that as they exit the site. So in terms of the site, we've spoken about adding those signs right at the exit driveway to be sensitive to that hourly restriction.
Can we
On
make
the-
that as part of the resolution, council?
Yes, we can.
Well, on that topic, if we could just expand that for a minute, because I'm assuming that the reason there is a restriction on trucks coming up Cedar Lane from River Road is because it's a residential area. Is there a way for us to put in a resolution to restrict trucks in general during the night? Because you're butting up against a residential property.
No. No, we can't control hours of operation or how they use the public road. I mean, if the council wants to put a restriction on Cedar Lane that says no trucks after 5 p.m., they can do that. We can't do that.
Highland Park Police are very good at putting restrictions.
There
I
is a sign
imagine-
there now saying they can't.
I've seen the sign, and I imagine there will be some eyes on it from an enforcement perspective the first couple months it's built. But we're happy to put the signs on.
On your
Obviously,
property, right?
yes.
Just the
My
one-
my recommendation, what we've spoken about, is yes, there's a sign on the roadway, but especially when the facility's new, you have a new driver, and I mean, a non-local driver would, not know that. So as they exit the driveway, it's customary that stop signs, no left turn signs, you have all those types of informational signs. Our suggestion is put that sign, an equivalent sign at the driveway, so they know they have to make a right out if they're dealing in those hours.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Looking at
Mr. Guard.
I'm looking at the end of Cedar Lane there. The sign is very small.
Yeah.
But there's also a sign that's a little larger, about 15 feet away from it, that says New Jersey Turnpike. A tracker's going to see New Jersey Turnpike, not the little sign that says
On the road.
restricted hours.
On the road?
Yes.
Yeah, I think on the, in general, we're happy to take the board or the board's professionals' guidance relative to directional signs. We don't have a turnpike sign as you leave the site. On Cedar, I know it exists, but I guess
Right
what
at
I'm
the
trying to do is
beginning, right where your
trying to
exit
preempt
is.
that. I think if we want to put directional signs as you leave the property, that was the one that I think is extremely obvious that should be there. But if there's further recommendations to guide truck traffic as they exit the site, we're happy to take the guidance of the board.
It's been my experience, though, that the truckers do not use truck-certified GPSs anymore. And roads that are restrictive to trucks do not come up on their GPSs. And they follow them. I live on a street that says no trucks 4 tons and above. And I can tell you how many times I've had big grooves in my front lawn.
Right.
Because they can't make the turns in that development, but they still come in. Because it said turn.
Right.
What are you suggesting?
I don't know. I'm just saying, this is going to be a problem. There will be a problem.
I don't.
But I think at least
Yes.
the applicant
But
is
there's
doing
been no
his.
study either on River Road, where Cedar Grove comes into River Road at that light. That can back up.
Right, wasn't necessarily a study, but we did look at trip generation there, and the numbers are very, very minimal, which is why it didn't necessarily rise to the concern of a full study there. I sympathize and I understand with what you're saying. I think practically speaking, there are much better routes, to and from the site coming from the north. So I do think that is going to be the more frequently traveled route to and from the property. We're happy to promote that to the extent we can with directional signage. I mean, you have Yeah, 287, Turnpike, 127, you can get everywhere from the north side. The left, is really just, I guess, Route 18, right? So, we're happy to promote, exiting traffic to the right. I think necessarily a prohibition or something of that regard, I don't
Right.
necessarily think is appropriate, but to the extent we want to put all of those, highway signs and really promote making a right out of the property, we're happy to do so.
And I think the issue, and I think you mentioned, Don, if Highland Park Police are there and they're enforcing it.
You go
we've had
26
those-
miles an hour, you got a ticket.
We had
Right.
those issues
And I
throughout
think-
the enforcement
I think
issues
they'll-
throughout Edison.
The first 6 months this is open, they'll be ready, I think.
Well, I guess the thing is putting the signs at your exits, and that's
Right.
the best
Yes.
you can probably
Yeah,
do.
if somebody's
for that,
leaving the site without,
Because that is the shortest route to the turnpike.
yeah, and I think as a driver, even if you see your GPS pointing you somewhere, I think a lot of times when you see those highway signs pointing you respect that is the better route. So, we're happy to do that.
I'm certain Highland Park will make sure you get the hint right away.
I
Even
tend
though
to,
Gary Penichel's not there anymore, but I'm quite
tend-
sure he's got a grip on somebody there.
I tend to agree with your line of thinking there. I have no additional direct testimony.
Thank you.
My fellow board members, any questions or comments of this witness?
I just think maybe put it on the record that we do have signage saying that.
Yeah, we have it noted down,
It is
as
on the
we'll
record.
put a condition on the.
Okay, great.
Len, did you?
I'm good. Very, very nice report. You did a good job with this.
Thank you.
And I think you went beyond where you had to go with some of the 3 times chip generation.
Right.
I just have a question for Mr. Lamb after your time.
Well, maybe he.
Unless you can answer.
Sure.
We did get the report from the fire department, and I think Mr. Lamb had mentioned earlier that they did not have a certain drawing.
Correct.
Which talked about the SU-47 fire apparatus.
Right.
Typically, we get a drawing that shows it operating on the site. What drawing is it? Because I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think it was provided. I think what Mr. Lamb is stating is that the fire official didn't have it, respectfully,
No,
but
but do we have it? That's
you,
what-
you have it, I have it.
See what? 83. Oh, 83, okay.
Yeah, so what I can state, and I want to make sure I word this in the proper manner, but there are many commercial facilities where a fire truck can become the design vehicle. In this case, the WB-67 is the design vehicle in that it requires, I think, more maneuvering space than the Edison fire truck. But Mr. Lamb has run that truck, submitted it as part of C-83. I've looked at that as well. I do believe that we will satisfy, all concerns relative to access to this property from the fire
And the fire
department.
department did not have the C-83 drawing.
No, from what I understand, they did not, but, I mean, just from a engineering perspective, this is, I think, a very generous design relative to circulation, just because of the nature of the vehicles, truck vehicles. I believe the fire official will approve this plan as Mr. Lamb has submitted it. If there's any changes, I think they will be extremely minor.
Okay, so then he does have the revised drawing, or the drawing that he didn't have.
He does
have it.
currently, but I don't think he has issued anything to the board, and we understand we'd be subject, I think we're comfortable being subject to whatever those final recommendations are.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we added that will be a condition, that there has to be a confirmation from the chief that they.
Correct.
I think they've given it to him, and then we're part of the thing that they need to, he needs to get a copy of that letter acknowledging that receipt.
And we need
Agreed.
to- We need to sign off on this.
Any other,
Chairman, can I speak to Mr. Lamb?
surely?
The trees, can you walk me through the trees again? You short 1,000 trees, is that what you expected?
Close to 1,600. 1,600.
1539 was the
1630. And Was that
1639.
Was that including looking at every measure to replant the pre-existing area to the right of your plan? That's all included in your calculation?
Yes. We have used the largest caliber trees and filled in as much as we can. And if there's additional room, we'll work with your board professionals.
And to the counselor, do we have jurisdiction to propose where the off-site trees will be planted? Because what I always have a problem with in our town is that the trees never get planted. I don't think in my lifetime, in 30 years of being in politics, I've seen 1,600 trees being planted at all that I'm aware of. And if so, I'd like to see them. And I'll measure it, but I just,
Typically, Joe, we require Hank verify
Yeah.
the conditions of that. That's usually what we do before a final certificate occupancy is generated for the use. Usually, it has to be verified by either condition that we put by Hank or
There'll also be
Charlie.
a performance bond, so we won't get the bond back unless we plant the trees.
I understand that. The question I have is the 1,600 trees you're short, where they're going to be planted.
It'll be a contribution.
It goes to the tree fund.
But, okay.
Yeah.
And to the counselor, can we propose where they're going to be planted? I know
I
some,
don't know.
you don't know if we can. or not.
Normally
Maybe just
Hank advises.
restate the question that was just posed, where,
There's 1639 trees that, so if there was no more room in this town, you'd have to write a check for, right?
correct, pursuant to your ordinance,
What's that?
pursuant to your
Right,
ordinance,
of course,
that
right.
calculation.
You'd have to write a check equivalent to 1639.
Right.
But what I'm hearing is that Hank and somebody else is going to see if there's other places in town where those trees can be planted. So maybe it goes from 1639 to 1039, I don't know. I think what the councilman is asking is, he's never seen where those 600 trees go.
Well, that's what we're saying, we could write the contribution check
Right.
for X, and then you could also plant a certain number of trees elsewhere in cooperation with, obviously with the township.
Right, so X
So-
plus Y equals what you would have paid if there were no place in this whole township to put any trees.
In other words,
Right.
I think what he's
We
saying
could plant
is,
them for less money than to write the check, frankly, so it's not going to cost us $500 per tree.
Well,
It's really
I'm-
our point,
Yeah.
so
Well-
when I opened and said, let's discuss it, it's because the number is so astronomical, we could plant, but we'd like the township to have more of the control to do it. It makes more sense for you, to your point exactly. I think the township would want to know where, so if it were a lesser check that we cut, but you had control, it would be a better result for the township. And I've experienced that in,
I think what you're saying is you're not going to just start planting trees all over the town. You're going to plant it on your property.
We don't
and
wanna do
whatever-
that.
And whatever you can't meet, you're going to give the town a check for the balance.
Or they're gonna plant trees in the direction of
The
the
township.
township.
Right.
Who say, we need some, this park needs trees, or this street needs trees,
Is that
or
how it works?
whatever it may be. He'll work with town officials to determine where trees are needed in
So
the
I
town.
have a question.
To reduce the payment.
Right,
Plus
okay.
the option, he has the option to reduce the payment by putting larger diameter trees in.
Caliper, yeah.
Caliper.
or if it's going to be off-site, work with the township, and you can decide with us, obviously, you'll decide where it will be, but it might ultimately be a lower contribution number, because you'll be deciding where the off-site trees are.
When you say you mean the township,
Sorry,
not the board.
sorry, excuse me, the township.
Not township.
But let me ask you a question. Who in the township, right? We have one retired councilman and one active. Who decides that?
I would think
So-
probably DPW would decide.
Mr. Chairman, my client would like to address the issue. It's been a big issue, obviously, for the town. May I introduce Mr. Gersberg to address the issue?
Please,
Sure.
please.
I think it
He
would be...
needs to be sworn in, though.
Yeah, sure.
Do you solemnly swear affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm correct.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Ephraim Gersberg, E-F-R-E-M as in Mary. Gersberg, G-E-R-S-Z-B-E-R-G. I'm the owner of 2020 Acquisitions.
The applicant.
Great. Okay. So the way I read the ordinance, at least it's been explained to me, is the choices is between a $500 contribution to the Edison Township and...
Per tree.
What?
Per tree. Yeah.
Per tree. Or we could plant it with Edison discussing where they want it. To your point, I'm sure there's some good places to put it, and there's probably some bad places to put it. I live in Highland Park. My daughter goes to school in Edison, so with regard to the Cedar Lane, I guarantee you the police will be there. That's the speed trap I've ever seen in my life. So having said that, my point in speaking to my attorney was, not only would it's much cheaper to plant the trees. So my gut tells me, so we're here, is that we will ask you where to plant 1,639 trees, whatever the number is, and you will tell us, there's hopefully some schools and some open space and some parks, wherever the council or the board felt it should go. The other alternative that I was mentioning to my attorney, and I don't know how it works procedurally, was I could tell you how much it costs me to plant them, and if you wanted to control that, again, to your point, I apologize, Mr. Coyle. Mr. Coyle, if they're not really going to get planted, then I'm happy to plant them if they're actually not going to get done, if that was your point. But I aim to do it. I just feel like it's just a waste of an opportunity to just put them anywhere. Rutgers has, for instance, told me that I could put them on their land if I need land, but how does it help Edison, quite frankly? Okay, so I'm just thinking about it from a person who drives around Edison. I drive by this project every single day. I go to work. I worked in Edison on New Durham Road. That's where my office is. So my point is just that I definitely want to work with you and find out where we should plant them. On the other hand, and I think that's what my attorney was trying to get at, was that if we could calculate the number that it actually cost me to plant, and if you wanted me to write that check, it won't be the $500 because I'd rather plant than do $500. I'm happy if you felt that your DPW or your outsource can do that same thing, whatever you want, but I'd like the trees to ideally get planted in Edison. That's my goal.
To give the control back to the township.
Right.
And
Either way, we're fine with it.
And just so you, Mr. Bignell will direct in some locations. Other locations can be directed by we have an environmental commission.
Right.
And I'm sure they have some areas where they would probably need trees, the DPW director, and there's a bunch of people that can determine where these.
I had a question, Lynn. Do we allow the applicant to plant the tree, or do we plant the tree?
I think the ordinance says what the ordinance says, and if there's going to be a little tweaking to that, that's between the developer, and there should be a developer's agreement that's executed between the developer and the town that articulates how this whole tree issue is going to be resolved.
Right.
And then one of the conditions we can put in the resolution is that there be a developer's agreement entered into between the town, and that articulates all the obligations with respect to off-track improvements and everything else that's normally in a developer's agreement,
Including the tree issue as well.
including the tree.
And that, it should be in the resolution. That would be very helpful.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Chairman,
Yes.
while I have you here, and again, our point is, and the town loves money, so they'll take your money. But what I've seen over 30 years, they don't get planted. And I've worked with every commission. We don't have the manpower. It's not that our mayor doesn't want it. Of course, we'd love to have it. Our council would love to have it. But the biggest complaint, our Councilman Zlandowski could tell you, he's been on the board. Everybody wants to see trees. They don't get done. Where are they going to be planted? We have several parks. And so if you're able to do the action behind the step,
Yeah.
if it's a savings to you, it's not bothering me. I know our residents would be happy, and your neighboring people would be certainly happy. The other part is the design. If you should be that cost should be included in the design. Because if we send you to a park to plant, you're going to have to do a landscape design. You can't just run in there and plant. You're going to have to prepare a design.
Okay.
So I'm sure that cost would have to be reflected against the 500, so you're not paying.
Twice.
Additional
fee.
Yeah, because you may get a tree for $130, but
Right.
you also have to pay for the design. There's 1,600 trees, is a lot of trees.
Agreed.
I would love to see everyone planted, and I'm certain my colleague here who complains about trees would love it. It's just our issue is that the action step never happens. We asked our council and the mayor to have a specific person who just works in the tree fund, and that may happen through the mayor's administration. And I hope it does. If that does, we're a home run. But if it doesn't, I hope our language in this resolution and the developer agreement can state that if and when we propose a park, that you'll propose a design and plant the trees that will reflect the cost of the balance ratio of each tree to not exceed.
Yeah,
Am I making sense?
That's
in my
my
direction?
point, which is that I'd rather just, first of all, it saves me money to plant them than I'd rather get them really
Are
planted.
you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay. And to the council, we can propose that language properly?
Yes.
Okay, and the last, while I have you here, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to, but the engineer was going to ask. When we do our pipe, in the redirection of the sewer pipe that you're doing, this is a large pipe on both sides. I'm concerned with the cost of any additional disturbance outside your property line. if it's recommended you have to go into the street and replace more than your property area of disturbance, are you replacing that as well? What's recommended, or only within your boundary?
I mean, we're replacing what's in our boundary, but my understanding is that this is a retroactive answer, because in others, I think that we have already received a letter that says that this is all you have to do, and you're only disturbing this. So, I mean, if for some reason, I don't want the township to now say, you have a blank check, go ask them to do everything else, but and I'm not saying that'll happen, but what I would say is that our understanding is that we've identified everything, and my also understanding from taking a meeting with one of the engineers early on was that this was a much bigger improvement to flow to I&I, and actually was a significant benefit to you. I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know who thought of zigzagging a pipe down the middle of a property. I don't understand it, but it happens. So the answer is we're going to take care of everything that's on site.
Yeah, and as long as there's no cost to the township from your project, and that's included in the agreement, no cost on this pipe work. Because what I'm concerned with is when you disturb, there's fractures that happen from a disturbance. And today, we're not having a problem. I'm not saying there isn't an undercover problem, but you're going to create the new problem. So I just don't want additional cost by us, and if that's included, I'd appreciate that, Counselor.
Great, thanks.
Just one more question before.
See, once you're up here,
Councilman, I just want to reflect that is a function of the developer's agreement.
Okay.
And if the municipality in the developer's agreement articulates the off-track improvements and the cost or the share of the cost of that is imposed upon this developer, because they're only responsible for their pro rata share of any off-track improvements. So if in building this or reconstructing the sewer pipeline, they damage municipal property, they are automatically liable for that. But if, by law, but if, for example, they have to do something at the intersection of Plainfield and Kilmer, that's only based upon their pro rata share of their influence on that intersection.
Based on our nexus to the property.
Correct. So, I think that you're absolutely correct in what you're asking for, but really, that's all in the developer's agreement, not in a board resolution.
So just one second, who's writing the developer's agreement besides this attorney, and who else?
No, the township attorney prepares developer's
Okay,
agreements.
so you need to have, what's his name?
Yeah, well, it's not my job to follow up on every, it's a job here. But as long as there's no cost to the town, there's no cost to the town, and our purpose is just the fracturing that can happen with disturbance. You're creating the disturbance, I'd hope that you're responsible for the disturbance.
Agreed.
That's all.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Peasy.
Mr. Gertzberg, it says on the application that Rutgers University is the present owner. Will they continue to be the owner?
No, I'm purchasing the property from them. And if it matters, I was told that money is going all into subsidizing tuition, lowering tuition. That's what I was told. That it goes to that fund.
But you're buying it.
But I'm buying the property.
Going for the new football coach.
For the first year.
Gentlemen, please,
Just
gentlemen.
year number one.
Gentlemen, please.
And last, Mr. Chairman, no trees are to be planted other than Edison. We're not planting trees at Rutgers.
No, in Edison.
Okay, Edison, as long as they're in Edison.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that ordinance doesn't allow.
Well, listen, they offered, they were,
Beach, so you can add to the
I heard Rutgers, I like Rutgers, but we're not giving them free trees.
Any other comments from the board? Any other witnesses?
We have two really quick witnesses, extremely quick. Please state your name for the record.
I do solemnly swear affirm testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I
Please
do.
state your name and spell for the record.
Lawrence Valenza, Valenza, representing M&H Architects, 2150 Schutz Road, St. Louis, Missouri.
Your credentials and licensure, you're licensed in New Jersey?
I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey, have a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Kansas. I've been practicing for 32 years, probably done 30 million square feet of this type of project in New Jersey.
Have you practiced or been before boards in New Jersey?
I have several, including this one a couple of months ago.
We will accept your credentials as being an expert
You have a
or
very brief-
certified architect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have a very brief presentation, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
A5.
I'm going to go right to the pretty picture and skip the floor plan and the elevations. I'll be brief and answer any questions you might have, but it's a concrete wall panel building. We use neutral colors, 3 different shades of gray, warmer grays. Very simple application of the paint color. Trying not to make the building too busy, just try to let it blend in a little bit. And then the office corners, at the 3 corners of the building that will have offices, is where we embellish with glass. Some more vertical elements. These lighter vertical elements sort of frame that office corner. The canopy will be clad in metal, a complementary color to the paint colors. The window frames and storefront framing is clear anodized, so it'll just look silver. And the glass will be solar bronze glass. It appears black unless it's nighttime and the lights are on, then you see through it. But very simple design, trying to make it more elegant and less busy of a building.
Lawrence, that's all tilt-up construction? The building itself is
Yes,
tilt-up
yeah.
construction?
Load-bearing concrete panels at the perimeter and then steel framing within and the roof.
Do you have any intention, is that going to be air-conditioned?
The offices will have small air conditioning units. Typically, the warehouse is heated only and just
Right.
ventilated in the summer, but there could be clients which would want that air conditioned.
Just
It's
a quick
unusual.
estimate, what would be your estimate of how long it would take the project to build that building?
The site work is the big variable, and I would let somebody else testify to how long that would take. But once the pad for the building is ready,
Yes.
that building, they cast those panels,
Pretty
you
fast.
tilt them in a couple of weeks, really, the wall panels will be standing. And then all the other work is going on kind of within that shell. So the overall construction period, I would say, of the building itself would be 6 to 8 months.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Gorin.
The air conditioning systems that will be in for the office space, will the outside location on the condensing units, or be on the roof? Or
On the roof.
And they be any kind of lined or parapet wall, or?
What we
just
do
out there?
is we try to hold them back we don't put them right at the roof edge.
Okay.
And when you hold them back, with the height of the buildings and the sight lines from the road, it forms a cutoff and you can't see them anymore.
Chairman, you may not answer this, but as far as the construction going on, will you have a water truck on site and a track pad for mud going into the street?
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. That's a complaint we get a lot, so I hope we
Tracking-
don't have to ask for it.
Right.
Will that message be given to your contractor?
It'll be part of the specifications for the project.
Just seems not to happen
Yeah.
on many projects. So, thank you. I don't want Highland Park to be calling me, there's mud going down there.
Right. We have another project going on right now where they have a guy with a power washer standing there washing the mud off the trucks before they go on the road just because it's such a mess.
You'd be so surprised how the neighbors would appreciate that. We have a warehouse going up right now, and it's a problem.
Yep.
It's a fine-looking building, though, Lawrence.
Thank you.
And we stopped the project twice. So I'm just warning you.
Anything else, Lawrence?
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Gaffone.
Do you want to borrow my coat? My
Yeah, I'm
overcoat?
it's freezing in
You
here,
can have my
honestly.
overcoat if you want.
I put my
Seriously.
coat on.
You
It's
have a
literally
coat on.
freezing.
That make it go quicker.
If my teeth are chattering during my testimony, I'm apologizing in advance. It's
Do you
freezing.
swear you're telling the truth right now?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
It's Christine Nazaro, Nazzaro, Cafone, C-O-F as in Frank, O-N-E. Business address is 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 200, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701. Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Christina Zarro-Cafone, testifying as a professional planner. I've testified before both the Planning and Zoning Board in Edison and about 420 other land use boards throughout the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing as a planner for approximately 24 years. I am currently the principal and owner of the Cafone Consulting Group, in addition to providing testimony. I teach planning and zoning courses for the Rutgers Center for Government Services. I'm also an adjunct instructor at Monmouth University, where I teach planning and zoning and real estate classes.
And your license is up to date?
It's current,
Fully
yes.
licensed. Very
Yes,
good.
it is.
We will accept your credential.
Thank you. Quite honestly, this is a very simple application from a planning point of view. This is a substantially conforming application, as the only variance we are seeking for a departure from the LI zoning district standards are the 0.8 increase in the height. So of course, the first thing we ask as a planner is, why do we need to ask for this variance? So I think it's a very de minimis variance. You heard from both Mr. Tung To Lam, our engineer, as to we are actually conforming when you look at the finished floor. It's the fact when you take the 6 elevations and the docks are 4 feet down, so it's really just a mathematical computation. So I would submit to the board that you can grant this variance under the C2 statutory criteria as we take advantage. This is certainly a sufficient space and appropriate location for this use. When you look at the negative criteria and the impact on the zone plan, there are just 4 things I think the board should consider. This is a 45-acre site. The proposed building is about 699,600 square feet. The zone allows for a minimum building coverage of 50%, while we are at 35%, and a total impervious coverage of 80%, where we're at 60%. So I would challenge anybody to notice that additional 8 inches of height on this building. I just don't think that it rises to the level of substantial detriment for the negative criteria. The land use law, of course, does not ask us to show no detriment. It asks that that detriment be substantial from a planning point of view. I simply can't get there when you are so conforming with the zone plan, and the master plan here in Edison calls for providing for future growth and development of the rateable base, and the growth management plan for the county, which Edison references in your master plan, calls for a preservation of existing community character and cites this as an industrial area for the creation of employment opportunities and for developing additional sources of tax revenue. So not only are we substantially consistent with your LI zone and a permitted use, but we do certainly help you implement your master plan for the goals and for this area. So I think we certainly substantiate our statutory burden of proof for the grants of the variance. I agree with the testimony earlier of Mr. Lamb. I specifically looked at your ordinance with respect to signage in Mr. Bignell's letter. I understand that he does cite that we do need a variance for the freestanding sign, but I think when you look at section 376211, specifically section B1 there talks about the distances, the linear separations for a freestanding sign. It's 1,600 linear feet. The 2,500 linear feet separation deals with freestanding signs, and it talks about signs that are advertising products or services that are not on the site. So that is not going on the subject property. So I'm comfortable to tell you as a planner, I really do believe that it's the 1,600 linear feet, not the 2,500, and we don't need that variance. So I think that taken together, we meet our burden of proof, and the board can certainly move the variance under the C2 criteria.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board members? Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all we have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, having said that, any questions or comments? Other than that, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody wanting to, from the public present here, who wants to speak, step forward.
Haven't seen no one come forward. I'd like to make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, having heard the testimony from our board members, I would like to make a motion that we approve the applicant's request on this project, including the height variance of 45.8 feet, I believe, as opposed to 45. I agree with the testimony as pointed out that there's no waiver or the condition of the signage of 1,600 lineal feet seems to be proper. However, we do have a substantial number of conditions, I believe, that we want to place on this applicant. The list, and please help me out if I miss anything from anybody's notes, okay? First of all, we have, as we had testimony, the applicant has agreed to provide the shortage of trees via money to the tree fund with all the conditions that we talked about, working with our township people to maybe find off-site places to do that. But with that, if that's not able to do it, all the shortage of trees will be made up by the ordinance and the amount of money that was required. We also have the condition or the testimony that the letter from the fire department suggested that they were missing some information in terms of the fire plugs and things of this nature and the turning radius. The applicant has indicated that they have provided that to the police, to the fire department, but we have not received confirmation that they have received that. So it's pending. We need that confirmation from the letter that that is done. Also, the condition that the address be changed from the cul-de-sac location to its own address, be a part of it. Also, I'm sorry, we referred to the trees, but the condition which I believe our applicant has agreed to, that no white pines will be planted in those configuration of all the trees that would be put forward, and we appreciate that very much. The applicant also agrees that there will be no vehicles that are not associated with the businesses that occupy that site, using their area as a parking lot or for anybody outside that. Yes. Yes. The comment that our lawyer said, the preparation of a developer's agreement, which outlines many of the details that we talked about, which will be included in the resolution.
Specifically, the tree satisfaction, the tree orders. The developer will address that.
And also, as the applicant has already volunteered, I think, and we appreciate very much, the positioning of the signs indicating that no left turn, or to try to defer trucks that are exiting the property to be told to move to the right, or turn to the right, not left, because of that situation, which we really appreciate.
And the signs will say no left turn between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m., correct?
Right. And also the suggestion by traffic expert. I'm sorry, that to the best of their ability, they'll put signs to reflect the turnpike, and the appropriate routes are better taken by going out to the right, to the extent it's legally possible.
Those are the only conditions I have, but in general, the applicant, I believe, has agreed to all the conditions that Mr. Carley had raised or addressed in his summary memo of December 11th, and Mr. Bignell, I believe, the details of which we went through in detail. But I would also suggest that since Mr. Bignell could not make it this evening, and I think you stepped us through each of those elements, I still would suggest that we put a requirement that Mr. Bignell signs off on everything that we've talked about here, and the conditions that we posed on there.
The developers agreement, Councilman Coyle reminded me that in connection with his discussion directly with the applicant for our council, that to the extent there is any disturbance as a result of putting those pipes in, they will be responsible, but in accordance with the law, how that, the ordinances in our council. You still
Mr. Chairman?
about that. Yeah.
One more, and adding the proviso that no changes can be made to these conditions of approval without returning to this board to seek our approval of any such changes if they take place.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second the motion with one little proviso, and that is, I understand that you said you didn't think the variance was required, but just in case it's a challenge, I'd like to grant the distance between the sign, you know, approve that as part of the application.
That's fine, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I think it's a safe way to do that. We're safe. I don't think there's any objection from them. Any other comments? With that motion, do I have a second?
Second.
That was my
Sorry,
second.
you- I
That was my
sorry.
second.
I apologize. Lillian? Yes, to approve.
Mr. Perez?
Yes, to approve.
Councilmember Coyle?
No.
Mr. Peasy?
Yes.
Mr. Sendelki?
Yes on the motion.
Mr. Danielle?
Yes, just to clarify, this is for prelim and final, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, to
Mr.
approve.
Reader?
Yes.
This application is approved for preliminary and final.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the board and your professionals as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian.
Looking at the agenda, finals, we have none. Miscellaneous, study of land use law regulations, is not a part of the agenda this evening. Open up for final, if anybody from the public would like to step forward.
Having seen no one come forward, I'd like to make a motion, we close public portion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
And a fine job you did.
Look at that, under pressure.
Don't get sarcastic. Don't get sarcastic.